Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial for the Dash 8 Q400. Today we're using the FlyJSim Q4XP model and Explain 12. And today's video will focus on the external walkaround. This is something we do when we take over an aircraft and between each flight. What I will show you today is the full walkaround that we do when taking over the aircraft, for example, first flight of the day, or if you're changing aircraft during your working day. Between each leg, we do a quick walk around to check the general state of the aircraft, but we don't go into the details that we will do here in the first flight walk around. So usually the walk around starts at the door. You're coming into the aircraft and let's say we're the first officer, the captain would go in and start powering up the aircraft and doing the pre-flight checks and tests. If it's the first flight of the day, that would include the expanded systems check as well. We'll do a video of that later on. So first off, the air stair door, just as you're approaching, just check that there are no damages or gaskets peeping out from behind the frame here. That a handle to lower the stairs are flush with aircraft. Next up, we have the angle of attack vane. This is a moving part, and it's usually a little bit askew like this when there's no airflow. But if you're touching it, you can wiggle it about. Just be cautious. Don't do this if the aircraft has just been out flying. This is a heated part, so you might burn your fingers. And next up here we have the captain's speedo tube. Just check for general condition and look into the hole that nothing has been lodged in there. This is an ice detection probe. As moisture and ice accumulates on this hole, basically, it will change the way it vibrates. The frequency that the sensor inside the hull is picking up will change, and it will give us the ice detected on the displays in the cockpit. Once it does that, it has a cycle where it's heating up, letting the ice go away and letting it cool down and accumulate again to check if there's still icing going on. Because if you don't do that, you would just build ice until the aircraft exits icing conditions and goes to a lower altitude where the temperature is low enough that ice would go away by itself. And in the winter, that's not particularly helpful. It might be there all day. So it needs to go through this heating, cooling cycle to check over and over again. And we have the doors at my operator. These are locked. We just check that they are closed and all the locks are flush with the aircraft hull. I've seen on YouTube some operators where they actually open these. So that's nothing to do with the sim anyway. This yellow and black stripy thing, that's the nose wheel gear lock. So we're just checking that this is flush with the hull again. And the ground crew, after a pushback, once they disconnect the tow bar, will flip this, pull it out, flip it, and that will release the down locks on the nose wheel gear. And the round hatch here, that's for ground crew intercom connection. And the rectangle is for ground power connection. So we'll see that. We can connect the ground power unit here and just see that the cable goes in there. Then there's some other technical hatches. Just basically check that everything's there. On the nose gear, checking for hydraulic leaks and the tire wear. We don't want to see any of the cords, the metal cords on the wheel. And that's not a big problem on the nose wheel. Nose wheel doesn't have brakes, so that's more of a main landing gear problem. Also check the taxi light, no cracks or damages. And looking from the side, we can see the oleo strut and the strut tube for the damping of the nose wheel. That should be about a fist, 4 fingers-ish. There is an actual measurement, but we're just... When you're doing a walk around, you don't have your tape measure out anyway. Check the nose wheel doors. No damage. Nothing that looks out of place. You wouldn't want these doors and hinges to become detached and make the nose gear jam itself when you're retracting. It has happened. It will happen again. Latest I've heard about was it happening on a main landing gear retraction. It actually broke and pulled one of the doors up into the cavity of the nacelle. So the gear wouldn't come out, at least initially. They managed to do it, but it took quite some time. And another thing here at the nose, this is the Radeon. And we can see the strips here. If you get a lightning strike on the nose, these strips will help to lead the electricity away, same for statics. And I've seen lightning strike, I've seen the dome after a lightning strike, not on the aircraft, but at maintenance. And these will just peel and start curling backwards. Checking the windows, again, just checking for major damage, same for the wipers. Everything should just look okay, and no cracks, no missing screws. It's just a quick check. Remember, the check we're doing, it's the pilot's checks. The major maintenance or technical checks are done by technical crew that are have a higher proficiency in the technical aspects of the aircraft than the pilots do. We're just doing basically a gross sanity check that everything's there and nothing is out of place. If you see anything that's out of place, you call maintenance. Again, checking doors. Yeah, this is just there's avionics and TRU's electric equipment in the nose here, so it's cooled by airflow. Again, checking pitot tube, first officers, and the standby pitot, and another angle of attack for the first officer, and a nice detection probe. On this side, there should be a green, same as one of these small hatch opening locks. There should be a small green dot here. That's for flight compartment crew oxygen. And that's the blowout disc, so if there had been any problems with the oxygen bottle and it overpressured, that disc would blow out and you would see, it would be missing, basically. If you see a green disc here, or it's not always green, sometimes they've been there a long time and they're faded, but just checking to see if it's blown out or not, but it's not modeled here. Again, windows on this side. This is the forward cargo door. This compartment isn't much used, and this is one of my gripes with the way FlyJSim is loading the aircraft. It's always using this. It's very rarely used in real life. If the rear cargo is very full, you might use it, or crew would put their baggage here, but most often we put it in the back as well, because the Dash 8 Q400 is a very nose-heavy aircraft. So we always want to load as far back as we can. You might even see this with low baggage numbers. We have to ask passengers to sit further back behind the wings just to get the aircraft into weight and balance before departure. Same as for any door. Checking to see that there's no gaskets peeping out. Everything is nice and flush, nothing sticks out. And same for the handle, everything is pushed in. In real life, since this is a very rarely used, on a rare occasion we get a warning in the cockpit, if it's been opened, that it's not properly closed. This is just proximity sensors, basically magnets checking to see the distance between a fixed point inside the aircraft and the door. And we sometimes have to ask the ground crew to just open and close it again to get rid of that warning. Here we have the right forward emergency exit. As you can see, it's divided into two parts. The external checks is the same as any other door, checking for flushness and gasket peeping out. Shouldn't be. This shouldn't be opened. The reason why it's divided into two parts is the Dash 8, if you are doing a ditching maneuver into water, it's designed to stay afloat unless you have catastrophic damage to the hull. So basically, the design philosophy is you should be able to split the door, open the upper part, and keeping the lower part called the dam in place. If you are evacuating on land, you open the upper part and there's a similar little handle on the inside so you can flip the lower part down. It's quite a drop, so if we can, we avoid using the emergency exits. So in case of a situation where we can do a controlled disembarkation, we would only use the main stairs because that causes a lot less problems and less injuries for passengers jumping down here. This is the wing light, or well, it says wing light. It basically lights up the props and outer parts of the wings. This part here, you might wonder why there's like a shield on the aircraft. This is in case of ice being flung off the propeller. So basically every winter or in the cold season, when you use the prop heat, you can hear ice smacking into to the fuselage. So depending on how hard it is or how much ice there is, you might hear a lot. So it can be a little bit intimidating sitting inside here and hearing that. But that's why this is here. This is a reinforced piece that's bolted to the outside, bolted is wrong. But it's attached to the outside of the fuselage and protects the aluminium skin on the inside here. And after the winter, this will be dinged up, paint will be missing, and it does its job. The prop, very big, very powerful. It's a composite prop, and we're just again checking for general damage. And it might be a little bit hard to see here. Yeah, here we can see. The outer part, the tip leading edge is covered in metal. And the inner leading edge is a heated part. So that's the prop de-ice. The reason why it's not covering the outer part is the prop is spinning so fast that this is deemed to not be critical. It will fling off by itself. It won't attach at all because of the tip speed, of course. On the inner part, we're checking the electric heating elements for damage. The type of damage I've seen the most is very common. You would see it here on the root of the prop blades. It would be small cracks going the same direction as the prop blade. This is not a critical damage. It isn't a damage at all. It's just cracks in the outer protective coating. And what the maintenance people will do is use very small, thin, rubberish strips that they glue on. And they do that just to avoid water getting into the prop and causing more damage. But of course, if you get water inside and it freezes, that will expand, and then you might get an actual damage to the prop. But other than that, this isn't critical. It's just cosmetics up to a certain point. So we just tell the technicians, they come and patch it up and note it in their maintenance logs. And next time the prop blades go in for maintenance, they will fix it. Along the sides here, we're looking for major oil or fuel drips. There shouldn't be any. If there's any hatches, check that they're closed. Engine intake, this is a boot around the intake. Check it for damage, and the same for the inner part of the leading edge of the wing. Just check for cracks and damage. This rubber, same as on the prop, this will start cracking after a while. Bigger things can happen if you use it in very cold temperatures, where the rubber will actually crack just due to being inflated in cold temperatures. There doesn't even need to be ice. So yeah, there are some limitations to that we can discuss later on. Try to have a look inside the intake. It's hard to see here, but we can see up to the forward part of the turbine. So you can do a very small visual check. And actually one aircraft, they found hat in here that had gone missing, I think a couple of days earlier on an airport in very windy conditions. So it had, I think it had lodged itself on this. There's some vanes in front of the turbine, so it was just stuck there. It never got sucked completely into the engine. But yeah, that was quite a thing. If there's snow or if you've flown through heavy ice, you would get one of the stairs. There's usually some low stairs on the stands, should be at least. And in winter, we would remove snow and ice from inside this engine intake. Underneath the intake, we have the engine, the ice doors. So this is the bypass doors you can open inside. And what it will do is when air, water and debris is flowing in to the intake, the core of the engine is on an upward angle. This is at the bottom, so if you open it, air will pass up and into the engine, doing the combustion cycle and being ejected out the back. But air, water, particles, even birds, anything that's heavier than the air will, by gravity and suction, be sucked back, down and out through this engine intake bypass door. So that's the reason for this. And we're not allowed to fly with this into known icing conditions if it's not operable. Same on the side here, checking for leaks, checking for panels. Everything should be closed. Another light to look at the wing. And we would have a look on the front part of the main landing gear. It's not modeled here, but there should be some pins showing the brake wear, as long as those are outside the main caliber. Everything's fine. Looking for damage on the strut and on the leg here. And having a look up into the bay and looking at the bay doors, just having a look for damage. It's always dirty, especially if it's been raining or snowing. Forward part of the wing, we're checking for just damage to the rubber. Here we can have a look. Now the aircraft is powered down, so there's no lights. But we have one main light and one standby light, so one of these should be working. We have static wicks, one on the outside of each wing and horizontal stabilizer, and we have some in the rear as well. Again, here we're looking for big things. It's always going to be dirty. If you see a static wick missing, call it in. Light not working, call it in. Cracks, anything out of the ordinary, we call it in. And if maintenance can fix it right away, good. If we can fly with it, we just note it down in the tech log and submit it to maintenance, and they will fix it on the next stop. Ailerons, connections, and flaps. Not much to see here. Just, again, have a look and see if there's any major issues. Again, doors, checking the rear brake pads. Same pin should be here. Checking for hydraulic leaks from the brakes. And up here, it's not modeled, but in here you would be able to see if the downlock pins, gear pins, are installed or not. And we'll also have a look inside the cockpit for where they should be located in the next video. One thing that's been caught out a few times, I don't think it's usual anymore, but it happened that the technicians had their own gear pins and put in here when doing maintenance tasks, and didn't use the ones in the cockpit. And then they left their own, let's say, private pins in here. And we had 5 pins in the cockpit. So there have been aircraft that didn't check this properly, had 5 pins in the cockpit, took off, couldn't raise the gear. And it's nothing dangerous. It's just a very humiliating turn back to the airport and having to go out and remove it. Checking in the exhaust. Again, you can't see much here. Just check that there's nothing in there. On the inside, I like to check the tracks, just for gross damage. Up here, we have a gauge to show the park brake pressure from the outside. Just check that it's there, and we're also checking that in the cockpit as one of the first things we do when we enter the cockpit. Rear right emergency exit. This is also a service door where they load catering. And if we need to air out the aircraft, the cabin attendants will also use this along with the main entrance, just to get some air moving through the aircraft if you don't have the APU or don't want to use it. Under here, I don't think it's not modeled. No. Some aircraft have a water tap back here that's heated. And depending on the water system, a lot of aircraft have what they call hot jugs in the rear galley. That's just water-filled boxes that's with a heating element that you can heat in the aircraft. But to refill it, you have to take the hot jugs out and replace them. So that's a catering job. Most of our aircraft have its own proprietary system, where we have a hatch just below this little wing flap here, stabilizer flap, where we can actually put water into a tank in the aircraft. It's a very good system, but it has its weaknesses during winter where it might freeze. And the components are quite expensive. But we're just checking to see that this hatch is closed. Same for in the front. I forgot to mention this hatch over here. This is for the lavatory. So just check that this is closed. You will very often see blue streaks below this for the toilet fluids that we're changing. Very good. Not much you can do with the tail surface. Just have a look, see that everything looks okay. We have intakes for the APU on the side here. And the fin and the stabilizer, just checking for cracks and major damage. Check that there are some static wicks. Yeah, okay, they are here. Rear lights, same again. Or actually, I think some aircraft, it's one main and one standby. and only one is lighting up, but some aircraft are lighting both. I think it's to do with if it's upgraded with LED or not. There's at least a couple of versions here. The two black dots on the horizontal stabilizer is logo lights for the tail. On the back here, just have a look down the fuselage. It's one very good way to see if there's been any major structural things going on, but hopefully not, and if so, that it was reported. But it's always good to have a look at the aircraft from afar just to see any major things. There is also, here you have a vent for, I don't know if we can see it here, but the rear bulkhead, you can see it more clearly. Yeah, here it is. So the rear bulkhead of the pressure vessel is in front of all these rivets. So the rear part of the tail is not pressurized. So you have outflow valves inside here, and the air can escape here along with the air conditioning packs. Here we have some drains from the galley, and there should be a switch or a little bump here that will touch the ground if there's a tail strike and give you a tail strike warning. Good. And this is the rear cargo door. The biggest door opens upwards, and again checking for any major damage. Gaskets. Same for the rear left emergency exit service door. Coming to the left wing, it's just the same as on the right wing. Check for major damage. Check for hydraulic leaks and brake pins. Also, of course, remember to check the tires. There might be uneven wear if they've been changed independently. Very often they are. And we're looking to see if there is enough rubber, or if you're starting to see some of the mesh beneath the rubber. Even with a very slight visible mesh, you can call maintenance and get a MEL release for a certain number of flights, so so the aircraft can complete its day, because it's not critical, and just as long as it's handled on the next ground stop. So if we're early in the day and see it, and this aircraft is scheduled for an overnight stop outside of a technical base, they might change aircraft, so this could go in during the night. Or if it has a long enough ground stop, they will just come with the tire, jack it up, change it. It doesn't take that long. Up here, I think there should be two, one yellow, one red. Those are the overpressure and discharge indicators for the engine fire protection system. So the squibs for the gas to extinguish an engine fire is inside the wing root here, and if they're superheated, they will blow out, same as the crew oxygen. And if they're used, same, one of these discs here will rupture, and you can see that it's been used, or if there's an error. Good. Left wing, again, big checks, checking lights, static wicks, checking the de-ice boots, checking the prop, checking the engine nacelle. Everything's closed, nothing's dripping too much. Checking the front brakes, and having a look, of course, also to see if the gear pin is removed. Again, we have an ice protection shield on the fuselage for the left engine, left prop. And just one last thing that we've not talked about. It's all the antennas around the aircraft. So you can see them protruding from the top and bottom. There's GPS domes, there's radio altimeters, Actually, this one where it says hot, that's a drain for the lavatory. And there's ILS, ADF, receivers, radio, VHF 1 and 2. And yeah, so all of those are along the bottom and top of the aircraft. On the top we also have one red light, that's the beacon light, and on the tail as well. So it's been commented in the early days that there should be one on the bottom as well, because it's hard for the ground crew, especially if you're in the front of the aircraft, to see if that's blinking during daytime. But yeah, that's it. Next up, we're going into the cockpit and having a look at cold and dark. So stay tuned for that.